Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I got a shiny new orchid, free! Well, actually it's not really, but it's sort of free. I was given it. I will have to put some money in the pot. This new forest show that's coming up, I've taken all my babies to the collection point and didn't get coffee and cakes, boo-hoo. Nonetheless, I had a good time, and I had a look round somebody else's growing spaces, I'll call them, because they're a combination of like shade house and greenhouse type things, and lots of wonderful plants. Well pleased with seeing somebody else's stuff firsthand, because videos are one thing, but being there is something else. So I was well pleased with that, and it's a sad case, but that's the only person in my Orchid Society whose grow rooms I've seen. I'm going to change that. It was also a valid point that my grow room is the only grow room seen by the same person, because he usually comes and picks the plants up here. Off the subject anyway, a nice little genuine mini Phalaenopsis. Big frickin' Phalaenopsis leaves, little tiny ones, don't knock things over. I love mini phals. I know some people think they're not proper orchids, but how can you say that is not a proper orchid? For a plant that big, with that blooms, and I got a special. I got the only one with 4 flower spikes. 4 flower spikes on a little tiny phal like that. I'm going to run with that, and you'll have to excuse the background noise, but with readings like that, because the flipping sun's been streaming in all day long, nothing's getting turned off for the sake of filming, so background noise, live with it. So nice new orchid, babies are gone, empty spaces, and Phalaenopsis are okay, aren't they? Lovely blooms. You know me, I'm a sucker for yellows, oranges and reds, and that's just how it is. Yeah. A word on YouTube. When I started and I put my first couple of videos up, I was nobody. I was a commenter. I looked at others and I enjoyed their videos, and I thought, this is a world I want to get in on. So I started doing some videos. I didn't say anybody had to take any notice whatsoever of what I said. And you know me, I always say, this is what I do, this is how I do it. You don't have to follow that course. Things have progressed, and I can only assume if I have a number of subscribers and I have a number of people that like watching my videos, some things must be going okay. I cheated at the start. I hitched a ride. I looked on orchid videos and found the most popular people, and I went on to their latest video and said, wonderful video, how would you like to look at one of mine? And I invited people to come to my channel, and it was really, really gratefully appreciated that they did, and they came and they looked and they commented. And if you're new to YouTube and you can get one of those people to start making comments on your videos, others will see that, and your subscribers may go up a bit. If you talk bollocks, excuse the French, you're probably either not going to get many people who like watching your videos, and the ones you've got are probably going to go down. Mine are going up, so it's an assumption, but I assume that people like what I say. If you don't like what I say, you can always say so, I don't mind, and I try and do my best. And in that frame, some people think I talk a load of rubbish. They're entitled to their opinion. My opinion is mine, yours is yours. That's life, that's the real world. In the YouTube world, it's a bit unreal. you know, we're almost not real people. We all know there's real people behind, and some people love to put big smiley faces on their videos. We know who they are, and we love them, and we love their videos, and we make comments, and we tick like and all stuff like that. It's a wonderful world. But you do get a few that cast nasturtiums. I mean aspersion. You know what I mean. Okay. You can choose to ignore those people, or you can choose to follow them. These are always your choices. I've got a shiny new orchid. My babies are off to a show which I'm obliged to attend, and my orchid world is quite good. I had a problem, and I thought, if I've got this problem, maybe some others have. So I thought I'll do a video or two to say what the problem is and try and resolve it. I'm not a scientist, I don't wear a white coat and goggles, I'm not a chemist, but I am an orchid grower, and I have a huge variety of orchids in a confined space. So first of all, I had to think about, well, what are the elements here that are involved? And we've got heat, or lack of it, yeah, but that as a subject. We've got light, strong light, not so bright, shady stuff down the bottom, so we've got light. We've got humidity, we all know that's pretty damn important. You know, humidity of 10% is not too good for many orchids, quite honestly. A humidity of 100% might not be that good, because it can cause all sorts of other problems with condensation leading to rots and moulds and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, you try and get a reasonable humidity level. And then you've got water. You know, water can come out of taps, it can come out of the sky, it can come out of RO units, but you've got your water quality. And then you've got your fertiliser. Nothing lives without food that I know of, so orchids need some sort of food. Some need an incredibly low level, almost nothing. And some need quite a good boost to kick them off. So I sort of looked at the elements that were involved in here and the problem I had. And I tried to investigate in my own limited way to resolve the problem. So I thought, well, the heat changes with the sunshine and the seasons. I can't control that to a great extent. But it hasn't changed this year from last year and the year before and the year before that. So I can probably exclude that. That's not science, that's an assumption, but heat probably wasn't causing the problem. So I then looked at light. Well, that hasn't changed. The shading netting goes on at the same time of year. You know, one layer and then two layers and the roof and etc, etc. So nothing had changed there. So then I sort of looked at the humidity level. I've had two foggers on the go for a long time. The little humidistat that controls when they turn on and when they shut down hasn't had its settings change. It sort of stays the same. I mean, in the winter they don't even fire, they just sit there doing nothing because the temperatures are lower and it's relative humidity that we're talking about. So water quality, well, a while ago I looked at my tap water and thought that's not so clever, and I looked at my Brita filtered water, which goes through one of those activated carbon filters, and that was quite a bit better. But the TDS reading I got was still unknown. There was stuff in there that I could not identify. And I thought, well, let's look at rainwater then. Oh, for hell's sake, there's no way I could collect enough rainwater in this little tiny garden to actually keep my orchids going. So I came up with the RO water alternative. And I looked into that because RO water's got nothing in it, it's dead. It's just a base. You know, but you know, it's got a set pH level that doesn't vary that much, and it's got a TDS reading that's right down the bottom of the scale and equates to next to nothing. So I thought, well, I can't water my orchids with that because there's just nothing in it. So I need to add something to it. And RO water and some rainwater is pretty special because it starts at that point. So you then look into fertilizers that are designed to go with that sort of water, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on the viewpoint, I only found one, and it had such good reviews and write-ups that this was a no-brainer. I'm going with that stuff, it sounds good, no names mentioned. So I started using it. The time of year I started using it was such that my orchids were not getting watered very often. Temperatures were lower. It's called winter, I think. Okay, so the fertilizer strengths were low. Plants were not getting fed at every watering, despite its claims that you can do that. But you know, I've got dendrobiums that rest in the winter. They don't need any feed in the winter. They don't even need much water. Some would say none. So, you know, it sort of built up. And then the growing season started. So I started getting up to recommended doses of said fertilizer. And over not a short period of time, but over a period of time, the problem arose. I started getting burnt roots, and I thought, it's spoiling the look of my plants. In my case, there were no plants destined to die. They were just not looking so good, and I thought, I need to try and solve this. And again, I haven't got a science white coat and goggles and all stuff like that, so I started looking at the elements that are involved in my orchid growth. And I thought, well, the heat hasn't changed. The sun changes it, but you know, winter is winter, summer is summer, spring is spring, autumn is autumn. That don't change that much, so I'll exclude that. That's not scientific, that's just, you know, well, that really hasn't changed, so we'll get rid of that. Humidity, supplied by the foggers, not used much in the winter because lower temperatures, humidity stays quite reasonable anyway. And I thought, I wonder if my little air cleaner is chucking out some rubbish. So I checked that that was maintained in its recommended manner. You know, I couldn't see any problems there, so that went straight out the window. And I thought light levels, well, nothing's really changed. The shading's the same as it always has been. It comes and goes with the seasons. Very little in the winter and a fair old bit in the summertime, like today when it's really earning its keep. Water quality, well, I've gone to probably what is the best there is. I've switched to RO. I'm going to exclude that. I mean, pH was a sensible reading. Some would say it was a bit too close to normal and perhaps might have been a bit better, a bit lower, but it wasn't dangerous, so I let that go. But I did look into it, and as I looked into it, you know, you sort of look at your base water and you think, well, that's okay. I wonder what the fertilizer does. Hell's bells, that drops it down a bit, but it doesn't drop it down for me to a problematic sort of level. In fact, it drops it down to what's probably a better level than it was at its, you know, sort of near the 7 mark. But then I thought, what about my friends? What about the others on YouTube? What about those that have got quite acidic rainwater that's got levels well down below the 5 mark? They could have some problems. So I thought I'd better mention it. It wasn't a big deal for me, but it could have been for others. So I did a couple of videos saying, you know, this is what I'd found, this is the available information, and basically there's no real science on pH with orchids. Lots of people have done studies on pH and nutritional take-ups, and they're wonderful studies, and I'm sure they're factual. But when they get to the orchid bit, they're assumptions, because no real tests have been done on orchids. And if you're going to do the test on orchids, which orchids are you going to choose? Dendrobiums with a dry winter rest? Paphiopedilums that should not dry out? Those that like highlight? Those that have got bare roots? Which ones do you choose? You're not going to choose them all. Those tests would last, well, beyond people's lifetimes. So some testing may have been done, but not real science. And I thought, well, you know, pH for me isn't a real problem. I'll let that one go. And then we got back to the ingredient that I still maintain is the problem, and that was the fertilizer. And on some plants, I went a bit over the recommended dose. I'll hold my hands up. That might not have been the best of ideas. but they weren't necessarily the plants with the problems. One was. So I'll put my hands up to that one. I've got one Vanda that, you know, did get feed level stonked up a bit. I was pushing me luck, and I'll have that one. That's down to me. But other plants were not fed with that higher level. In fact, they were fed with less than the recommended dose. And those that had bare roots got burnt. Not all of them, only some of them. So there was a problem. That problem, I can now emphatically state, has gone away. And the proof of the pudding, I can find a little tyke. Where did I put it where I can get at it? Here it is. Nice, handy. My Neo I got upset about because it did look smashing, and now it didn't, and now it doesn't. But just have a close look. Some of those burnt root tips are now growing again. Look at that tiny little new root there. It's clean and it has a pink root tip. I would suggest the proof of the pudding is in the eating. That has been nowhere near the old fertiliser for a while now, nowhere near it. It had a bit of a flush, although with a mount, you know, you can flush your mount twice in 2 days at this time of year. So this one's now recovering. I have active growing tips that had been burnt off, and the only new root that's actually pushed out since I changed how I water and fertilise is clean. There it is, absolutely clean. So, not science, but an assumption. That plant's roots are getting better. And what have I changed? Heat? No. Light? No. Humidity? No. Water quality? No. Fertiliser? Yes. Take it as you will. For goodness sake, don't do as I say. You know me, I never tell anybody what to do. But that's one case. Another case, I can't show you. It's the one that's gone. But I've also got a Vanda that its roots did show some signs of burning. It wasn't dramatic, and the roots were still functional. I didn't class it as a serious problem. But since changing the way I water and fertiliser, those roots have now started to branch in a serious manner. They hadn't done that up till now. Growing season in the UK for Vandas probably doesn't start till May, you know, seriously. And then it goes on till the day lengths drop down, you know, and you do the best you can in that sort of, you know, environment that you live in. But that one has shown distinct signs of improvement in the root area. So I'm pleased. So my analysis of my problem, I'm reasonably certain, was accurate. You choose. If you don't like what I say and my logic, don't follow me. If you disagree, please say so, and say why. Because everything I say, I try and explain why. Don't just disagree and say you're wrong. That's just no argument at all. Anyway, I got a new plant. And that conversation is now ended. In the YouTube world, I did say I hitched a ride a little bit and it raised my profile. As a consequence of a lovely long chain of comments, which I have had great fun taking part in, I have had a ball because it has no consequence to me. I tried to make my point, it was not accepted. Somebody else tried to make their point, and their logic to me was just rubbish. So I tried to make my point again, and then they harped on about something which was far off the topic and kept on about that, and I made that point again. And if you bang your head against a brick wall often enough, eventually you realise it hurts and you stop doing it. I also realised and was actually reminded that by taking part in that long chain of hilarious conversation, I was raising somebody else's profile, unintentionally, but somebody who people may have never heard of, they now have heard of. That might be a good thing, that might be a bad thing, but on my part it was unintentional. If you've got a bit upset by that conversation, I'm sorry. Humble apologies. But I thought I had a problem that affected my babies and I wanted to solve it. I think I have solved it. Others have that same problem, but apparently they're all wrong. They're all wrong because there is only one way to grow orchids, and that's the way I do it. And that's not me talking, you know me. There are many ways to grow orchids. There are many environments. There are many orchid types. No one situation is the same as another. And if people in varied situations have got the same results, the problem exists. Now, it may have variables, and I may have missed some, but at the end of the day, in my environment, next to nothing has changed apart from one item. That item has been taken off the board. It has gone, it has ceased to be. I will not support it or recommend it. I will shoot it down at every opportunity I get, given the circumstances under which it caused problems. If those circumstances are not relevant, then there isn't a problem with that item. In fact, that item could be wonderful in some environments under certain conditions. But for me, it's caused some problems and burnt roots on my babies. It's not a good idea to hack me off. Anyway, on a nice note, I've got a show coming up. I'm going to enjoy it. And I've got a new beautiful Phalaenopsis that has not got now and will not have any burnt roots, because I believe I have solved the problem. And I can prove I've solved it, because by removing the element that I believed was the problem and changing it to something else, the problem is going away. I can give no more proof than that. That's the best I can do. You know, you agree or you disagree, or it's totally irrelevant because you don't use the bloody stuff. But that's my views, and that's how I see how things progressed along the line of trying to find the problem. I thought I'd found it. I've now reasonably proved that I came to the right conclusions. You may come to other conclusions. I'll gladly listen, gladly. But in my environment, under my circumstances, a fertilizer should not be subject to environmental conditions. If it's called orchid fertilizer, its job is to fertilize orchids and do them no harm. If it's capable of doing harm, it should say so in the leaflet or on the package. Yeah? If you bought a washing machine and it said on this setting it might chew your clothes up, would you use that setting? No, you wouldn't, because you've been given a warning. Chances are you'd have bought a different bloody washing machine. But you know what I mean. You know, if things are capable of causing harm, you're obliged to say that under certain circumstances these problems could occur and you'd avoid those circumstances. But you can't avoid them if you're given no warning. And we all know that products that come out on the open market under normal circumstances are really, really thoroughly tested. But in the orchid world, I'm not so sure. It's as simple as that. Okay, thanks for dropping by. I'll try and do some film of the show I'm going to, but I've got no guarantee I'll succeed because I have to man the stand and all that stuff. And we've got loads of orchids like this one to sell. Do you know, we got these for less than £5. Trade, wholesale, and we'll be knocking them out at quite a lot more than that. So I'm well pleased with this one. It's a beauty. You know me, I love the yellows. It's a smasher. Okay. Hopefully that sort of cleared the air, because the air got a bit thick. And you know, if you've got a problem, you try and tell others in case they've got the same problem. You don't deliberately wind people up. That's not the way we live on YouTube. Okay? So have fun, happy growing, enjoy yourselves, enjoy your comments, enjoy the replies to the comments. That's what the YouTube world is about. But I'll leave with this comment. Is it real? Yes, behind the scenes we're all real people, but in the YouTube world, is it that real? You can basically say what you like. It can be wrong, it can be right, it can be I don't know what I'm talking about, it can be I'm the world's leading expert. But it's a YouTube world, it's synthetic. I remember a famous line from a film, The Matrix, where people had entered into the Matrix and decided to throw each other around. And one said to the other, do you think that's air you're breathing here in this world? So let's be careful out there. And my mouth has run wild lately, it does that. It won't be doing it anymore because I've just managed to raise somebody's profile dramatically. But it was a bit of fun. Enjoy yourselves, thanks for dropping by. And let's all not take life too seriously. But when a problem burns your roots, you need to solve it. I believe I've solved mine. I think I've proved it. And you know, I'll put a little scenario over. Let's say you had a car, make and model, colour, all that sort of stuff. And one of your friends bought exactly the same car. And he phoned you up a while later and said, my car's broken down. Would you turn round and say, it can't have broken down because mine's fine? That sort of logic is so dumb as to be atrocious. Sorry, but that don't hold water. So, you know, just because your environment and your elements don't cause a problem doesn't mean there isn't a problem in other people's environments with their orchids. The problem doesn't go away by not admitting it's there. And if you endorse a particular product, I'm sure you have a vested interest. Yeah, well, I don't endorse anything. All I want is for my babies to do as well as they can in the circumstances I can provide. They're not perfect. I say, I do push the limits. I've got Masdevallias growing intermediate that should be growing cool, and in 2 cases should be growing cold. Boy, are they suffering at the moment, but they're not dead. They're hanging in there. And I've got some that could probably do with a bit more heat than I've even got today. Well, I can't do that. I can't afford it. So, you know, we push our boundaries, and we do as well as we can. I don't think I do bad. I do get losses now and again. They're usually down to me. Sometimes they're just rubbish plants that I bought, you know, but some of it's down to me. And I'm the first one to admit that, and I'll say this is what I did, what I think I did wrong, and what I think I'll do next time if I've given if I'm given half a chance. Think of Zygo petalums, paid up member of the Zygo Killer Club. Well, I've got one that's hanging in there. I've just repotted it. And who knows, it might actually do okay this time. We try our luck, we do what we can. But what we don't do is knock somebody else down because they don't do it the same as us. I've seen smashing stuff in the horticulture front. A few years ago I'd have said, you are talking out of here, because that don't work. You can't stand orchids in water. I've seen it. So how can I now say that that's a stupid idea when there are major successes? Things change. People try different things. And I'm really pleased that those people have got that to work. I'm not going to do it myself, but that doesn't mean to say it's wrong because it's not how I do it. There is not one way to grow orchids. There is an infinite number of ways to grow orchids. And based on that, how can you say my way is the only right way? And if you're doing it different, you are wrong. An emphatic statement, 3 words with an exclamation mark. You are wrong. Do you ever think I would ever say that to anybody? Well, I've had it said to me. You choose. If you think I'm wrong, please disagree. Please leave comments and tell me why. Because I could be. And if I'm wrong and you explain why, I've learnt something. A famous saying. If you talk, you repeat what you know. If you listen, that knowledge base may grow. It even rhymes so that you can remember it. I think that saying is about as true as it can get in the circumstances that have been and have ended. Thanks for dropping by. I'll give you an update on the show when I get back. And also a big thank you for people who thought they might want to jump in on that huge long chain of conversations and didn't. That was between two people. I wish it had not been on hanging under my video. I wish it had been hanging off the other person's video, because that would have made no difference to me and may or may not have made a difference to that person. But they've hitched a ride on my subscribers and the people who like commenting on my videos, and I'm disappointed with myself for going along with it. But boy, have I had some fun. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's ended now. It has ceased to be. It is an ex-parrot, if you know the joke, fair enough. But it's gone. It's over. I'm doing what I think is best for my babies. That person will carry on in their own little world of their own limited selection of orchids, which are wonderful, I must add that. And that world will continue in its way, and it will be great. This world gets different orchids. They come and they go. Some do well, some don't do so well. Those that don't do so well, I do my best to find out why. But when an individual product, an individual element of my elements has caused the problem, and I can emphatically prove it by excluding the others, then as far as I'm concerned, I've found my problem. I've now got rid of the bloody stuff. Quite honestly, I was thinking about using it on the orchids where it doesn't have that sort of effect, you know, those that stay moist, those that have got roots buried in pots. They were fine, and I was thinking of carrying on with it. But no. Who knows what long-term damage may be going on? So I'm not going to take the risk. It's gone in the bin. I will never get near it again. Maybe we had a bad batch. There's all sorts of things that could be involved, but the stuff that came out of that tub that was mixed with my RO water burnt my roots, because nothing else changed. If that's not logic, I don't know what the hell is. You know, I'll go with it, see what you think. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Somewhere there's some food and my first glass of wine for the day. And that's what's going to be next. Last little look. Do you know what I've just seen? I bet the camera doesn't pick it up. If you look at that bloom there, that petal has got sparkles on it. It's got that crystalline effect. On a path? Sorry, on a foul. Mouth won't work. Well, that makes it even better. New orchid, freebie. I will put some money in the pot when I get the chance. And a chat about things that have been, things that are now, and my way forward. If you choose to follow my way, you are welcome. You are most welcome. If I'm talking total cobblers, I expect you to all go somewhere else in droves. So see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.